Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for the beginning of the 3-day launch of the 2020 State of the Inner City Report. COVID-19, the changing state of the inner city, strengthening community in a time of isolation. The State of the Inner City Report started at the Manitoba office of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives 16 years ago as a way to highlight the essential but too often invisible work of community-based organizations throughout Winnipeg's inner city. Every year, the focus of the report is chosen by the community-based organizations themselves, and it should come as no surprise that this year they chose to focus on how community-based organizations who deal with emergencies and crises every day, all day, did so and continue to do so in the middle of the pandemic that requires us to be separated from one another. Before going any farther, I want to recognize that the inner city of Winnipeg is home to the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada. This is Treaty 1 land, and land that has traditionally and continuously been the home of the Métis Nation and many First Nations. And unfortunately, none of these Indigenous nations are strangers to pandemics. Throughout this history, we have much to learn in the present about individual and communal health and wellness. Many of the community-based organizations throughout the inner city of Winnipeg work with, serve, and are often run by Indigenous peoples and principles, including recognizing that the health of the individual is deeply connected to the health of the society. My name is Shayna Plaut, and as a mother and proud resident of West Broadway, I had the pleasure of being the lead researcher of this report, along with my colleague Justin Grift. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the leadership and frontline staff of community-based organizations who are walking the talk tirelessly and still found the time to sit down and share their experience in the middle of a global and local pandemic. Their words and actions enable us to better share the basic needs of the people we live, work, and play in the inner city of Winnipeg, and what is being done in these very trying and constantly shifting times to meet those needs. One of the organizations that was brought up in one of the needs that was brought up in nearly every interview, and we interviewed 30 people in 21 organizations, is that of mental health. Klinic Community Center is one of the organizations that has constantly adapted in order to provide mental health services for people throughout Manitoba, including residents of the inner city of Winnipeg. They have done so throughout the entire pandemic, through their multiple crisis lines, which are province-wide, and which has experienced exponential growth in calls, as well as through modified individual and, when possible, group counseling. To be clear, mental health is a crucial component of public health, and this has been made ever more pressing through the pandemic. I am now going to turn it over to Nicole Chammartin, Executive Director of Klinic, and Dr. Andrew Lodge, the Medical Director of Klinic.
Thank you very much. Always nice to be outside in almost mid-December, so that's sort of a plus in these somewhat challenging times. So we always appreciate the opportunity to talk about the well-being of our community and the people who live here. It's impossible to talk about this, though, without talking about the intersection of so many different factors that inform a person and a community's health. Well, the interplay between physical well-being, mental well-being, addiction, racial and gender inequality, the social determinants of health, such as housing, poverty, food insecurity. All of these issues are very, very important issues to our community, and something that we see impacting upon the health of people every single day. When we talk about and think about our community as well, it's impossible not to think about it within the context of colonization and the ongoing impact that has on the people who first lived here and continue to call this home. We see those impacts every day, and that, again, intersectionality between all those other factors is readily apparent to those of us in healthcare and in other sectors. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this launch and to discuss these very pressing matters. COVID has affected everybody. 2020 has been a year I think a lot of us won't soon forget. For us, COVID is both an exacerbation of the issues that I mentioned, and it also helps illuminate these issues, and to some degree, and perhaps this is a bit of a silver lining, it brings these issues to the forefront of public discourse where perhaps they aren't, always something that we see in day-to-day media and so on. And so in that sense, while it's a very trying time, especially for folks who live at the margins, COVID also provides us with opportunities like this one to build partnerships, and it just shows us the importance of public health initiatives and grassroots movements. So for this, I think there's something positive to look forward to as we carry through this potentially difficult winter. Thank you. Nicole?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks. I want to say thank you to the CCPA for including us in the report. I think to say that COVID has impacted mental health for people in our community and around the world is an understatement. I've worked in mental health most of my career, and watching how it impacts, frankly, collectively, all of us is really kind of astounding. It's like watching a worldwide experiment. And, obviously that's going to impact us heavily at Clinic, where it's something that we support and work with every day. And we certainly see it every day. And I think Andrew talked about how it impacts so many populations, but particularly people who are marginalized. And I think what COVID has done is it really illuminates the frailty that so much of our world is built on, and how so much is so close to the line for so many people, for so many organizations, for so much of our existence. And so, we had the opportunity to move to this incredible new space in the middle of a pandemic, which I have so much gratitude for, but also was an amazing experience. And I don't know what we would have done had we not. It's allowed us to really be able to at least space out and continue to serve and expand, and be able to be here in ways I don't think we would have been able to be. But there's still so many things that we struggle to do every day. So we've talked about our crisis lines that really have felt the impact of this, how difficult it is for volunteer-based services or services that are heavily reliant on volunteers, when people are being told very rightfully so to stay home. It's just an incredibly challenging time for organizations and for people. And I hope that what we will learn and take from this is that we can't support a world where so many live so close to such an edge, that we have no latitude and we have no ability to have some overage that crisis is so close all the time. And I think when you run programs where crisis is in your name, you're really the first to feel that. So I want to thank you for coming to talk to us today, for always highlighting how important organizations are in response to these kinds of crisis. And yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Nicole and Andrew. As you can see, Klinic, like other community-based organizations, have been and continue to be frontline essential workers, but with limited and inconsistent financial support and resources. To get a fuller picture of how community-based organizations in the core area of Winnipeg have responded, please attend the launch of our full report on Thursday at 1 p.m. at CCPA Manitoba's YouTube channel. You can register at CCPO Manitoba's website, or if you're watching this on YouTube right now, check out the chat box. Registration information is there.